Om Shanti. Good morning. I found the story very moving. I hadn't heard this before. We hear lots of stories about medieval, but this was a different one. But yes, it explains perfectly what the whole subject of clearing the heart is about. And this morning you heard that if there's the awareness of the inner being, then it's on the basis of that we can make connection with the divine. It's a fact. Why? Because if I'm thinking of myself in this identity, then all the things that are here are going to draw my attention. My own body, people connected with this body in terms of my relations, the work that I do, the possessions that I have, the things that this body requires. That's what the whole world is about. And that's what our life has been about, basically. And it's actually a verse that comes in the scripture, the Gita. I mentioned the Gita yesterday, but again, if I ask myself the question, is there a text that we would refer to? Maybe the Gita is the one, but not always. There's a few concepts there that I would question. But certainly in this case, in the definition of yoga, and we use this word yoga in meditation, but yoga is really the correct word, the union, the connection of the self with the Supreme. And then meditation's a term that people generally understand. If you just use the word yoga, they tend to think about the physical postures and exercises, which are great, but it's not meditation. And so sometimes we use this word meditation, but in fact we're actually thinking about the connection. And you can make it even simpler and not even use the word yoga, just simply remembrance. And even in the Hindi language, sometimes, in fact very often, rather than the word yoga, within our teachings we just simply use the word remembrance, to remember, yad. Just as a child would remember the parent with love, or the parent would remember the child with love. Same thing, just simply remembrance. And so what am I remembering and what am I forgetting? And in human life, very often, we forget the good things, the sweet things, the valuable things, and we remember the harsh, the bitter, the sad things more than we remember the good things. Is that correct? And the reason for that is that the bitter things, the hard things, come like a sledgehammer, and so they impact the soul very strongly and even leave an imprint on the body. Psychosomatic illness is all about this, the soma being impacted by what the psyche, the soul, is going through. And so health and meditation, very deeply connected, of course. Many of you are aware of that, and some of you work in that field. But because it leaves such a strong imprint on the body and also on the soul, when we are silent, then it's those things that come up generally. But even generally also, apart from silence, just moving around, something will trigger a memory, and that experience of harshness or bitterness or sorrow will come back. And what Raj Yoga is teaching me is to be able to change that so that the memory and the remembrance of that which is good and beautiful and positive is able to emerge more and more. And so that becomes my reference point for everything that happens during the day. And so if I start my day remembering the divine, remembering my own original state of being, remembering my original home, a world beyond. If I remember these things, then I'm likely to be influenced by these qualities and this experience. If I remember the negative, and this is what's impacting me, and I'm carrying this within myself, then it's not a very healthy situation, either for the mind or the body or the person I'm interacting with. And so this cleansing process is part of remembrance in a very automatic way. The more I remember the good things, the other things begin to fade. Just as if you write something on a board and you write it again and again, you repeat it, that imprint is going to be much deeper and more lasting. Same thing, the more I'm in awareness of the soul, remembering who I am, the more the imprint of that is going to be deeper and deeper, till the point where it becomes more natural to be aware of the soul rather than this physical identity. Many of you are aware of the continuity of the soul, and I'm not going to go into the detail because it's a big discussion and we can do that another time. But in the context of this particular subject now, there may be things from the past that I carry that I'm totally unaware of. I'm dealing with a situation with one particular individual who doesn't remember the scene, but she's been told about it by her parents, and they did it in good faith, and they thought that they were trying to help her. But once she understood that this is what had happened, the trauma of that has lasted a very, very long time, and she's still trying to deal with that. And it'll come up in situations like feeling being put down, feeling nobody values them, lack of self-esteem. It keeps manifesting in all these different ways. And I'll tell you what the situation was, because it might have happened to many others. When she was absolutely just a tiny infant, both parents were migrants in the UK, and they were having a hard time settling their life, doing work and whatever. And so they decided that the baby would be better off in India with the grandparents. So on one level, you can see the logic of that. They didn't have time to do what was needed for the baby. And so the baby was sent to India, and it wasn't with a relative or someone who knew her. That happened. And by the time she was 4, they were settled, and the baby, the child now, came back and had to understand the story. But why I say is that there may be things that I carry way, way back in the past, and it's leaving an impact, an imprint of sorrow within me, and this can get triggered any time, all the time. And so when I have a chance for silence, what am I doing? If I just let my mind be free, it's more likely to go into the past sorrows and things that are not very pleasant. But understanding that I have a choice, I, the soul, can decide what I want to do with my thoughts and my feelings. I decide I want to spend time reflecting on my own inner identity of the soul, because that is the real. This life is part of a much broader, longer journey whatever before and after happens, there's something. I don't know what maybe, but there's something. And so this life is part of my journey, and this is what I want to focus on now. But at this moment, I know that I existed before this body came into existence, and I will continue to exist even when this body finishes. And so the natural state of being is actually to come back to that awareness of who I truly am, the soul. Instead of thinking of all the things of this and the associations of this, which is what we do most of our life. If you think about what you've been thinking about for the last, not since you've been here, but for the last 10, 20, 50 years, it's been mostly connected either with this and the livelihood of this and the people that I'm connected with on this plane. And I've now come to this point where it's my good fortune that I have the right company, I have the space, the time, the right atmosphere, in which I can actually start exploring the inner being, the soul. And it's not just enough to think about, I'm a point of light. You'll very quickly get bored and your mind will get distracted by many other things. But to actually go deeper and deeper within and come to the awareness of your own core values, the innate values that the soul carries within itself. And so think about that peace, the love, the purity, the joy, the wisdom that lies within. And so firstly, I'm remembering myself as a soul and experiencing it. There's a difference between thought and feeling. And so the thought comes, I'm a soul, but I don't necessarily feel it. But if I hold that thought for a while, I'll begin to experience the feeling of being this point of light and moving away from this identity of the body. I, the soul, have a body, but I am a soul. Sometimes our language gives away our consciousness. And say, for example, when I say, my soul, who's speaking? Is it the body that's speaking and saying, my soul? No, it's I, the soul. And so can I change my perspective, and instead of thinking of this when I think of I, but think of this being of light. So today is a day to experiment with this idea and see to what extent you can actually feel it, and to let the thoughts slow down. And in a way that's automatic. When you start going inwards and looking at your thoughts, where are my thoughts going? A big support, but at the same time a distraction, is nature. Why I say this is because so often people spend the day in silence or several hours in silence, and the things they come back and talk about are, I was watching this butterfly, I was watching this flower, I was watching this tree, which is all beautiful. And it's an indication that normally these things just exist, but we're not aware of them in a sense. They're out there and we're already busy with our own other stuff. How often is it that I've walked from here to there and it may be a beautiful path through the garden and I've been totally unaware. And so coming back to awareness is great. But meditation is not the butterfly. Meditation is not the beautiful flower. It's helpful to be in nature because we do see the beauty and it calms us down. It's a bit different to being in an office space or with many others, wherever. And so nature is good, very beneficial. But my focus has to be, well, what am I supposed to be remembering now? What is the opportunity I have at the moment? And so to focus on the soul and to feel the soul, and not just that being of light, but to explore the different qualities that are there within the soul. And it may be easier for me to experience compassion and love rather than truth and power. But both are needed. And I need to develop everything, but start with the ones that are easy. You know that you've had the experience of love and you carry on with that experience of love, so emerge that experience and be able to deepen it and go further and further. And connecting with the divine is very helpful because I'm able to draw from the divine that which I need within myself. And think about the different relationships you can have with the divine. God is not human, and so doesn't ever physically become a mother or father. But God is the one who is the source, and so all attributes are there within that being. And so we use human terms to make it easier for us to have that experience. So I can think of God as my mother. Doesn't matter what I've done, the mother's love is unconditional, non-judgmental. I'm sure the father's is also, but the child generally would run to the mother first. Maybe because she's more accessible, she's more at home. But also because he knows that the father has set a standard and would want the child to reach that standard. So, the mother, total acceptance and total love. And yes, the father, with a very specific inheritance to give me, a property to give me, the property of happiness. God has an abundance as the ocean. And so connecting with the source, connecting with the ocean, I'm able to draw that within myself. The teacher, the source of wisdom, of truth. The guide who can lead me to the world beyond. My friend who can be available for me at all times. And sometimes it's easier to talk to a friend than talk to your mother. And so, God, my friend, the one whom I can play with, the one who's there to always listen, the one who's always there to comfort. So whatever it is that you feel comfortable with, explore that relationship in the time that you have. And maybe it's time also to go beyond your comfort zone. And if thinking of God as a mother is a bit beyond your comfort zone, try it. Challenge yourself and see what it feels like. So, beautiful surroundings. And this afternoon we're going to go to the beach. Even more beautiful surroundings. But it's the setting of the scene. It's not for you to meditate on. So see how through the mind you can make that link and allow the other side of the conversation to happen also. Sometimes I think of prayer as my conversation with the divine, but meditation is the divine's response to me. And definitely, it's not a set prayer that you chant, but it's whatever are the thoughts, the feelings of your heart that make that connection, so that then there's two-way process and you're able to receive. And all this is just within that whole subject of yoga, meditation. Maybe I can differentiate a little bit. There's a stage when I want to connect, but my thoughts go here and there, and gradually I'm bringing my mind back. If it goes off somewhere, it's fine. Don't lose patience with your mind or get angry with yourself. It's okay. But gently bring the mind back again. And so that stage is that stage where I'm trying to meditate. And then there's a stage that comes in which now my thoughts are focused, and that is then meditation. But beyond that, where it's not just my thoughts, but a genuine relationship that I've made with the divine, maybe that is what then you can define as yoga. And so that stage of trying to meditate, then meditation, and then actual connection and relationship. And the soul is being transformed in a very beautiful, natural way through this experience. But also we know that we carry many things in terms of our feelings. When we use the word heart, we always think about this organ that sits here. But in fact, when we're talking about heart in terms of relationships, this is just the pumping machine. The real heart is in here. So we all have two hearts, the physical heart, but when I'm coming into that experience of feelings, then that's the heart that's here. And yes, soul and body absolutely deeply connected. And so the feelings that arise immediately have an impact on my physiology. And so when I say my heart is racing, this is racing, but the feeling is here, and that's been the trigger. Seeing somebody I love, and how does this heart know when to beat faster or race? It's my consciousness, it's my awareness. And so there are many things that I carry in here that might come up, and they might not come up when I first start to meditate. In a way, it's like there being a honeymoon period in which the first period of experience is a lot of love, a lot of joy, euphoria. Literally, it's that. And then you begin to see the things that you have to deal with, and they begin to come a bit later. They don't always come up at once. And then you begin to see it in your attitude to some people, and there seems to be a difficulty in a relationship with somebody. Now there's nothing that's happened on an external level that's causing this difficulty. So what is it? And at some point I was having a challenge with someone, and as I say, there was nothing external. but it was always difficult to connect with them. And there was always a hesitation on my side to reach out to them. And I started to explore what it is. And I realized that my attitude was one in which things were coming up against that individual. And I could see that there were certain things in the other person's behavior with others, not with me, but the things that I'd observed, and also, I have to say, the things that I'd heard, that had all created this barrier within my attitude. And I decided it was important to sort it out and let it go. And so, yoga and God's love and changing my awareness to see them as a soul, not to see them with the influence of what others had said, or even the influence of what I had observed, but really to see them in the beauty of the soul, and to know that yes, there is that goodness that can shine, and I have to be able to see it. And in a very genuine way, over a short space of time, it didn't take very long, but it meant that there was a change in the quality of interaction and relationships. So definitely explore attitude, explore memories. What are the memories I'm carrying that are causing the sense of feeling of sorrow? And can I get rid of them with God's love? So, a very important part is the whole subject of cleansing. Another thing, somebody I know very well, and he's a powerful individual out there in the world. And the subject was, it's actually a very interesting subject. You have the Sustainable Development Goals, and there's an organization that's looking at the whole subject of the inner goals and the development of those. So developing the inner goals. And within that, the subject of racism came up. And this person's in a white body, and he said when he'd started exploring the subject of racism, his first thought was, I have friends of all backgrounds, I'm not racist. And so that was the first thought. And then he started to explore, and he realized one very important thing, and that was that as a white Anglo-Saxon person, there were so many privileges that he took for granted. And that was fine. It was part of his life, it was part of his upbringing, and it was his right. And of course, then when he began to explore it more deeply, he realized that that was racism. And he hadn't understood that until he was on this very deep inner journey. And he was a meditator for many, many hours every day, but it took a while. And so systems have been built around all sorts of barriers and external factors. And if I'm in a position of privilege, I don't realize it. It's working in my favor. It's when I'm not in that position that it's easier for me to see it. But whether it's brown skins or black skins or white skins, there are always certain things that this is who I am. But no, it's who I am because of the birth that I've taken in this particular body. It's not my right, but I've taken it for granted. And so maybe I'm talking about things that are too deep and subtle, but I'm sure that many of you have been on this path of inner discovery for a long time, so these are the things that you may have come across. But you can see how there's a huge amount of cleansing of the soul. And if I say heart, that's one aspect. The cleansing of the heart to take place so that I can come back with God's help, God's love, to my original state of being a pure soul, absolutely free from any influence, absolutely free from negativity, but truly a soul that's completely clean. And so things that I can understand immediately, let me deal with. And maybe you can stay in the honeymoon space, or you can go deeper and clear things out further, if that's where it takes you. The other thing is to think about this word power. And we use the word power usually on a very external level, and power has to do with money, authority, leadership, external things. But spiritual power is the sovereignty I regain over myself. It's nothing to do with power over another at all. But as I draw God's light and might within myself, I notice how it's becoming easier to focus my mind. I'm regaining control over my thoughts. It's not that my thoughts go wild and take me astray. Sometimes the mind gets into such a spin that it's difficult to bring it back to a state of stability. And of course, feelings also are part of that. And my thoughts create feelings. And so there's two layers in that area that we call the mind. The soul is just a point of light, just beyond measure, not measurable, infinitesimal. And so, in a way, I can't say this section is the mind, this section is this or the other, but it's layers that you discover within yourself, and also is different aspects of energy that are being used at different times. And so it's the same energy, but the usage will determine the terminology. And so my thoughts and repeated thoughts create feelings. And when I'm talking about power, there's another aspect of the soul that you've come across already, I think. And that's what we call the intellect. But intellect is a very poor translation of the word buddhi. But I haven't been able to find a better translation in all these years. So the buddhi, that plays a double role also. On one level, buddhi is the container in which I hold information, and that information can turn into knowledge. What I don't need, I discard, and what I keep is the knowledge that's useful. And as I begin to follow the path of the knowledge, the things that I understand, it leads to wisdom and further towards the truth. And so, on one level, it's a receptacle. And when the receptacle is polluted, then of course everything within it is also tainted. And so my beliefs are part of this container. And so, are my beliefs real? Not real? I have to experiment and find out for myself. But so often we hold a belief and we think it's real, and it may not be. And so, through meditation, through that influence of the divine, that receptacle is being made clean again. And I'm now able to see the difference between my experience and the reality of that and the belief that I had held. The second part of the role of the intellect is a word that fits in perfectly, and that is conscience, vivek. And so the buddhi is also vivek, my conscience. And that's what brought me to Raj Yoga, understanding that the conscience has been influenced by so much from outside, everything we've been exposed to. And it's not possible for me to discern clearly what I need to do. And so again, the influence of the divine, so that other influences can be dispensed with. And all this is a journey, of course. It doesn't happen in a day or even a few days, but it happens as quickly as I wish it to. The whole journey can be a very fast one, but what is my passion, what is my interest, that will determine it. And so to have a conscience that's clean comes through meditation, yoga. And the cleaner it is, the more powerful it is. In the sense that on one level I understand I should, but my emotions come in the way and override what my conscience is telling me. And so it's not just I should. The feeling takes over and I do what I know I shouldn't. But when the conscience has moved from just the I should to the understanding I must, this is what I must do, and it's coming from within me. It's not just expectations, but it's truly what I know I have to do. Then there's power within that. So the clearing and the cleansing of the buddhi is happening through yoga. And this may be perhaps the first step in terms of transformation. Because so often in our life, at any time, there's a voice telling us, I should, but I'm not ready to listen. But in the connection, then that power comes. It's very clear. There's no dissenting voice that's coming in. Otherwise, one voice is saying one thing and another voice is saying, oh, it's okay, never mind. It'll be fine. It'll work out. It's okay. But when it's that one clear voice, it carries that power, and that cleanliness, of course, has come from above. I couldn't have done that on my own. So there's a lot that one can do without God in silence. But of course, having God in the picture allows transformation to happen in a big way, but also makes the path much easier. So that I'm not carrying guilt from the past. Guilt becomes again a big factor in which I can't come close to the divine. But from the teachings that I've understood, that realization comes that I have to seek forgiveness and not just carry the guilt. And it may be just forgiveness from the divine. It may also be forgiveness from others who are still around, which might be more difficult. But it'll also be a measure of my honesty if I'm ready to do that. So the whole process of cleansing is what happens through yoga. And that state where I am the master of my thoughts and feelings, I'm a master of my conscience, I am the master of the habits, the patterns of behavior that I carry. Again, through yoga and the will that becomes strong through yoga, I'm able to change habits that I've never been able to change up until now. There's the external addictions, substance addictions, and to get rid of those is maybe a lifetime's job. But with yoga, it happens quickly. And nobody tells you, you have to do this, you have to do that, or you have to do the other. I just take that power from the Almighty, and I have the power to make the changes that I know I want to make. My vision has changed for myself, and so as a result of that change and the power that I'm receiving, letting go of external substances is very easy. Most times I've seen it to happen in a very easy and natural way. With the inner addictions that I have, I'll give you an example. Today a child is obsessed with a blanket and wants to carry his little blanket with himself everywhere. Or maybe the girl is obsessed with a doll, whatever. Well, at some point, that goes by the wayside. Then the next attachment is to my friend. Today it's this friend, tomorrow it's that friend. So it's not actually the friend that's causing the addiction. It's me, my obsession and my attachment, my dependency. But the personality can change, the object can change. Instead of a blanket, it's now a bicycle. Now instead of a bicycle, it's now my car. And the story goes on and on and on. And so whatever my attachments are, I say, well, I'm attached to this. But I'm not dealing with that thing. I'm actually now understanding that it's something in here. And I have to deal with that in here. Then I can be free. That thing will go. At some point it'll get too old, it'll get too tainted, and I'll throw it away. But I'll find something else to replace it. People. Same thing. How many of you know about the rebound effect? So, but God's love, God's power. So whether it's my anger, that's my addiction. Whether it's attachment, whether it's greed, whether it's ego, whether it's lust, that's recognized as an attachment and obsession and addiction nowadays. So all of these negative forces which have totally trapped me, and I didn't even realize that I was in a trap. God's power, God's truth, first of all makes me see, makes me understand that this is what is actually holding me back. No human being can hold me back. No position or situation can hold me back. It's my own inner negativity and weakness. And so this realization is very powerful, and God's power helps me realize, but God's power also helps me bring about a change. So, when we talk about transforming the self so that the world can be transformed, it is an absolute reality. I change, and my responses to the world around me changes. But beyond that, everyone I've had an impact on, they change, and it reaches out further and further. Somebody was telling me how before the government stepped in and stopped smoking in offices, they were in an open space of about 8 of them, and 2 of them were not smoking and the rest were smoking. And within the space of a year, the laws came in later, but everybody had stopped smoking. That influence, it spreads, and you begin to see the difference. And so you want to make that change. So transformation of the self is possible, and science validates this. You know, we used to say that a leopard doesn't change its spots. And we thought that was true of souls. Whatever you're born with, that's what you die with. But no, we understand differently now. You can actually remove all the spots and come back to that original state of purity, which is as we started our journey with. So it's remembering who I truly am, and then returning to that again. Remembering who my eternal parent is, and connecting with that one. And one last thing. There was an individual who came saying that he didn't believe in God, but he wanted to learn to meditate. I said, fine, we began and carried on. But a few days later, when I spoke about this being the physical dimension, where souls take bodies and play their part on the world stage, then there's a dimension beyond, where there's movement but no sound, and that's the subtle dimension. Then there's a dimension beyond that, a dimension of pure light. And in that space of pure light, total silence, no movement, total stillness. And that is the home of the soul, and it's also the home of the divine. And so one way to meditate would be coming to the awareness of the inner being, inwards, then upwards, to the being up above in that home of light, but also an experiment. Can I visualize a place with no walls, a place of light, and myself in that place? And this person who claimed he was an atheist, and later he became a theist, but at that point, hearing about the space of light, he said, I've been there. I know it. I thought that was brilliant. So, but it is a home, and the memory of that lies within the soul. And you can experiment with that too. That's not really possible when you're walking and meditating. Walking and remembering is easy, but when you have a chance just to sit quietly somewhere and let your mind just go far beyond this physical dimension into that space of light, you'll be able to feel it. The memory returns. Sometimes it's happened to people without a conscious effort on their part, as in this case. But it also happens when I allow myself to go deep within into silence and connect with the divine. And it happens in a very natural way also. So 3 things to explore: the soul and its qualities, the divine and my relationships and the qualities, and my home, a place that I can return to. Just think about it. Here there's chaos going on, and within a moment I'm able to connect and be in that space of stillness, and I come back down again. The chaos is still there, but I've changed. And the impact that I have on the chaos becomes visible. Things change. And so yes, there are moments when we are drawn into silence, or we consciously make the effort to go into silence, and the response that comes out, it wasn't me, it was really something from above that helped. You heard about Mandela's story. I was with Madam Sadat for about a week. I'd met her in London. She came to Abu and we started the course and we couldn't complete it. So I went to Egypt to be with her and complete the course. And she told me that early in the mornings, there are not so many homes that have gardens, but of course President Sadat did have a beautiful garden. So she said that he would go into the garden early in the morning and said, I'm just going to be alone with God. And she knew that the power that he had and the instinct that he had in that silence was then able to make the Camp David agreement possible. And then, of course, it's the Dark Age, and people who stand up for truth get shot down, and that's what happened. But it was interesting. She said, I didn't know what he was doing in that silence, but now I understand. And so, whenever there have been sparks of light within the darkness throughout history, it's been people who've been able to tap into that power, that connection, and make a difference. Shall we experiment? Any questions? Wait a second. A microphone is coming to you.
How unique is I, the soul, if at all? I'm not sure if that's clear enough.
Yes, very clear. Every soul is totally unique. Although we share the same basic qualities, you can see that the percentage, in a sense, is different. Each one with their own percentage. And the combination is different. Some with a huge amount of compassion, some with less, some with truth, some with less. So I'm putting it in a very rough way, but the role of every single soul is totally unique. 8 billion souls, and each with their own different role, which is what we observe. Each with their own different features, characteristics, qualities. It's an amazing world we live in. Truly it is.
Just to go deeper on the same question, if you don't look at all the role, all the drama that's around everyone, if you go, once you've removed all the karma and all the material limitations that come around the pure soul, isn't the pure soul of most of us very, very similar in a way, without any karmic or other influence?
The soul is eternal, and so its role is eternal, but there's a cleansing that happens before we go home, and so the original soul is pure, but it still has the pattern of its role within it. Make sense? Okay. I have to say that some of my answers are like shorthand answers, and there's a big depth of knowledge behind that.
Thank you very much, Sister Jayanti. I really like the way you defined prayer and meditation. And I was just reflecting on how most of the times I end in the prayer, not really getting deeper into the meditation. And at the end of the day, it becomes difficult to deal with some issues in a transformed way because I haven't gotten the power from the divine, and I haven't given him the chance to download or for me to connect with him so that I act differently. So thank you very much for that, because for me it's more on your last point where you say the chaos is still there, but it's the way I react what would make it a better place for me. So yeah, thank you very much for that. I thought I could just comment on it because it has really opened my eyes on that. Thank you.
I have a question. And I think for me it's when you also spoke about the attachments we make. And there's a phrase that keeps coming back to me. It goes something like, we are sometimes scared of the greatness in us. And I get attached to noise because noise helps me not go beyond and deal with what could lie beyond it. So I've conditioned myself to, I can't be in a quiet room. So I can have all sorts of sounds going on, and I think, because every time I'm quiet and the journey starts, I stop. It's almost like scared to get to, and you've described those states very nicely. And that's the one thing I often struggle with, just not, you call it a home, it's almost like I don't want to arrive because I'm scared of what that state would be and what it would call of me or the impact on me. So I kind of like float in the chaos. It's safe.
It feels that Mandela is very much in the room with us because I believe that was the statement he made at his inaugural, and it's a phrase that comes from Marianne Williamson, I think, that we're not so much afraid of our weaknesses as of our own greatness, because we wonder what's going to be the impact of the greatness on those around us. I'm paraphrasing it, but it was about that. It's true. Greatness carries its own responsibility. And if I can feel I'm truly that pure, peaceful soul, then I'm also beholden to how I behave through the day. I can't let go of that memory and get into something else. And so I have to remember that's who I am and then walk my talk. But I think once you start experiencing the sweetness of the world beyond, then that's going to help you not be scared of it, but to embrace it.
Om Shanti. I wish to share how I move from body consciousness to slightly to soul consciousness. I think memory lane, I remember when we had the call all the time in South Africa. You did a public lecture in the municipal council in Durban. I attended it. This is the turning point from that lecture. When you went on stage, you were like a star coming in, and then first sentence you said that the soul is an atom that drives the body. I still remember this sentence of yours. And this was the only sentence that convinced me that there is a soul. Based on that, I apply my own physics knowledge that matter cannot be created nor destroyed, so an atom cannot be destroyed. So based on that, whenever I am in trouble, I have to go to soul consciousness. I remember this sentence. This has been the turning point of my life. No, you're not that body. Sister Jayanti told you I am an atom. Still, even when I lecture, I mention you. The word that you told us, this was the turning point. Whenever I am in trouble, I remember you and said, no, you're not that body. You're an atom. You're pure. So leave that body again. So this is something I will never forget from you, the message at Durban. Thank you.
Let me take it a step further. Remember this all the time, then you won't be in trouble.
If I am a soul that comes from a pure place and I'm eternal and I'm currently having a human experience, why do I need to do all this work when I'm not in that realm? I'm currently in this realm full of drama, full of emotions, full of fear and judgment and all these things that I feel and experience. Why can't I just be in this human experience and deal with the drama? And then when my soul passes this human experience and I'm in another dimension, in another realm, I deal with those things in that realm and in that dimension at that time. Why do I have to do so much work now? Why do I have to sort of deny myself of the human experience that I find myself in? How much power have I got over this human experience?
Very good question. I, as a soul, want to be in this human experience, but I want it to be a happy experience. I want it to be an experience filled with love, with truth, with joy, so that I stay happy, but also everybody else around me is happy too. Why I need to make this effort for purification and cleansing is because I forgot about my own reality as a soul. I got into just the consciousness of matter, and matter took over, and so all the attachments and egos and problems started there. And so now in this condition where I have a glimpse of happiness from time to time, but I can't hold that happiness all the time, and I see the suffering around me of others, and that also causes me pain. And so why I have to make this effort is to be able to change that scenario.
Om Shanti. So, having spoken about the soul, connecting to the source, so there's also this aspect of the karmic accounts that I always hear in the Brahma Kumaris. So I just wondered if you could briefly talk about this, the connection between the soul and the karmic accounts. That's one point. Second is this summary that you gave of the three points. That is the soul, the divine, and the home. So if you can also just expand on the home part. And lastly, I would also like to share that yesterday evening I was speaking to a very close friend, Brother Raj. You would know him. He is in Canada. So yeah, Brother Raj and his Yugal sister Surekha. So he just told me that you are in very good hands. Just go there and just listen to what Sister Jayanti is saying, and to please pass his and his Yugal's best wishes, best regards to you. Thank you.
Okay, the first question. Everything I do has two dimensions to it. One is the impact it has on the outside. I get angry, and that has an impact all around me. Or I bring in a moment of peace. That has an impact around me. But it also has an impact on a very subtle level on the soul itself. It creates a pattern, and that pattern is likely to create the thought in a similar situation next time. So if there's been a situation of anger, next time a similar situation comes up, now it's uppermost, and so it's triggered, and again I get angry. And so that pattern is underlined and strengthened. And so the karmic account is twofold. I've given sorrow, and so sorrow is going to come back to me in some form or another. And so what Raj Yoga is doing is teaching me that at this moment I have to recognize that this is me. It's not something you said or you did or something that went wrong and I blame and complain, but it's my reaction. And so if I choose, now I can start doing something about this. And my ability to cope with the sorrow will also then increase. Otherwise, sometimes sorrow and helplessness go together. What can I do about this? They're like this, and they're like this all the time. And if it's not this one, it's this one or this one. And so I'm absolving myself of responsibility. It's them, not me. But Raj Yoga says, okay, look inside and see that there's something in me. And when I start doing that, then with the power of God's love and the power of my connection, the yoga, then this is where we don't use the word meditation anymore, we use the word yoga. It's the fire of love, it's the fire of yoga, and that's able to burn away and settle that account. And the account is settled, and my own sanskar, this is the term I'm using for the pattern that's fixed within me, that sanskar can still change. The three things to remember. If I create the thought, I'm a soul, then I let myself sit with that for a while. Then I'll start, and not allowing other thoughts to come in. I'll come back to you. Wait, you're not going to go away, I know, you'll still be there. But for the moment, I want time to explore this and to go deeper and deeper inside. Somebody asked Daddy, how deep? And she says, more deep than you can imagine, until you can't go any further. So just go deeper and deeper inside and feel the soul that I am and the qualities the original qualities that we've spoken about. And then secondly, experiment with God, the being of love, the mother. God, the being of truth, the teacher. God, the being of joy, my friend. So experiment with each one of these attributes. And the relationship and the attribute both go together, so you're able to experience this. The home, it's very, very easy. Once I've found my way up there, I'm a soul, I'm connected with the Supreme. This world is down here, it's not going to go away. It'll be still here when I come back. For a few moments, I want to go up above and be in that place of silence. And in that space of silence, I'll feel the stillness, I'll feel the purity, my home. So they're all experiments to try and see. And if you're enjoying one particular aspect, stay with it. It's not a tick list that I have to go through 1, 2, 3. Take your own time with it. Okay, so sit comfortably, the body relaxed, but also the mind alert and the body balanced. I let the world outside stay outside, and I go on an inner journey. I visualize the being of light, the point of light shining in the forehead. Going deeper and deeper within myself. As my thoughts slow down, I select the thought of peace. I can feel the peace within. And in this quiet space, my mind tuned to a higher frequency, I can feel the presence of the Divine, the Supreme, the being of light. I absorb this love within myself. And the power of love emerges. My own feeling of love within. As I receive the love from the Divine, knowing it's my right as a child of God It is my right to feel this love. And in response, my own love reaches out to God. I had forgotten what pure love is. And now I begin to catch a glimpse and feel the richness and the fullness of pure love. Staying connected with the Supreme. I receive truth from the Almighty. I begin to understand the secrets of the self, the secrets of the divine, and also the secrets of creation. The Supreme, my teacher, explains all the details of this, so that now I have clarity and I understand. Now that I understand, I also see clearly what it is I need to do. Connected with the Almighty, I feel the power, the might that God fills within me. So that once again I can be the master of myself. Holding this awareness, I come back to the awareness of the physical dimension, and others around me. Thank you. I'm going to take a few minutes longer because there's one particular aspect of Raj Yoga that I haven't mentioned, and it's going to be important for you to be aware of it. You're going to be walking, you're going to be moving around, you're going to be doing whatever you need to do, and we're asking you to meditate while you do all of this. And so you have to learn to do all of this with your eyes open. And so you have to learn to meditate with your eyes open. There are 3 reasons why we meditate with eyes open. One is so that it can be a continuous connection with the divine and a higher consciousness in all the things we do. Cooking, cleaning. There's 1,000 things we do that don't require our intellect. And during that time, rather than let thoughts go here and there, can I practice staying up above, connecting with the divine? And so, when we meditate, if we can learn to meditate with eyes open, it's a very good rehearsal to continue with that. And the second reason is, when we meditate with eyes open, and there's somebody conducting meditation, we look at the center of their forehead, and they look at us, and they see the soul, and you're seeing the soul. And so when we meditate in a gathering, I'm aware of the soul, and I'm thinking of the Supreme, the being of light between me and the other, and I see the other also as a soul. We call this drishti. Drishti just means vision, but in the context of meditation it means the vision of soul consciousness and God consciousness. And so we're able then to make that connection with another in that vision of soul consciousness and being able to see God between us. And so this is the way in which we're able to keep a higher consciousness at all times. But this vision of soul consciousness is the third aspect. You carry this out with you, and whoever you're looking at, you're seeing them as souls, not as the body. And so important to try this. It's sometimes difficult for people because they get distracted with eyes open. But that's in a sense the crux of it. Can I stay in a spiritual consciousness whilst engaged in all the things I need to do, and not allow this level to distract that higher awareness? So try it, part of your experiment. Thank you.